It's good to be here again. Thank you, Nestor, for inviting me. It's fun. My wife, Luann's not here this time, but for those of you friends out in the audience, she sends her greetings too. We're celebrating our 45th wedding anniversary this year, so we're traveling a lot together, but she was unable to come this time. So anyhow, thank you. A year ago at this time, I had a picture up of a freighter coming out of the Savannah Harbor. I like to have one picture to try to summarize the whole U.S. economy. And the message last year was clear sailing ahead. I looked at all the economic data and came to the conclusion I couldn't find any reason for an investor, a businessman or woman to have hesitancy about engaging in the market in 2018. That was in January. That was when I was here. Somewhere around June, I've done about 1,640 of these now. For the first time in my career, I uttered a four-letter word in a presentation in June, and I uttered it 3 times in the same presentation. The word was boom, B-O-O-M. I've been doing this since 1997, and I've never experienced an economic boom. And I realized this is like, look, we are in boom times, gang. And in many aspects, we're still in an economic boom as we sit here today. I do this a lot. I've been in Florida twice. I've been to San Jose a couple weeks ago, all over the country. And I can tell you, I know for a fact, unless you guys are totally unique, which I know you're not, you're worried about a recession this year. There's just an amazing amount of nervous, hand-wringing anxiety among businessmen and women right now, and I kind of get it because I bet you watch TV. I've been trying to tell you for a decade to stop watching TV. It's worthless, and I'm just warning you, if you make a living by making business decisions for yourself, or heaven forbid, if other people are kind of relying on you for your expertise and analysis of the economy, I'm warning you, if you watch cable, not cable, any TV, I don't differentiate any of the network, any of the cable, Al Jazeera, the rest of them. I mean, there's no difference between Al Jazeera and ABC, NBC, Fox News, any of the rest of them. I'm telling you, you can make significant mistakes and you will be poorly informed. And so with that said, once a year I volunteer to teach at A&M in their business school for one night. And some students afterwards said, hey, so how do you stay informed? And I thought it was a great question, and I want to share that because often people ask me that. For a business person, all I need is the Wall Street Journal and the 2 news services, AP and Reuters. I have the AP and Reuters apps on my phone, and I read the headlines of the Wall Street Journal. The rest of it I totally ignore. Facebook, oh my gosh, get off of that as fast as you can. It's an abomination to society, okay? But with that said, quite a few people might have somebody on from MIT saying we might have a recession between now and the end of the year. If you're not familiar with MIT, it's a community college back east. They have a pretty good basketball program, okay? And occasionally they put somebody on national TV and pretend they know what they're talking about when it comes to business. There's a big difference between being an engineer and talking about the strength of an alloy of steel or something and talking about the outlook for the stock market. And some of those people at those basketball programs don't know the difference between the two. So you can listen to them and make significant mistakes in your business as well. And if you're sitting there hand-wringing yourself right now, like I know some of you are, waiting for that recession to happen, unfortunately, all last year, you missed out on a wonderful year. You're going to miss out on a wonderful year this year as well. But here's the theme for 2019 as I see it. We're beginning our initial approach for this flight. Capitalism creates cycles. We go up, we have an expansion, we have a plateau, we have a recession, we have a trough, and then we do it all over again. And when I was flying into DFW a couple of months ago, the pilot said, we're beginning our initial approach. And I thought, that's exactly what the U.S. economy is doing right now. Initial approach, when he said that, the pilot said that, we're still at 30,000 feet. We're still going 500 miles an hour. So it's awesome. We're going at a very healthy clip. It's just like we're not going to gain any more altitude and we're not going to pick up any more speed. We're going to begin a gradual descent. And I see that happening in 2019. And what does that mean? It means that we're not touching down. This is not what an initial approach is. If you listen to too much propaganda on TV, you'll think we're going to have a landing, meaning we're not going to have any job growth between now and the end of this year. It's just pathetic. Keep in mind, a lot of you have heard me speak, but if you haven't, I'm an economist, and that means there's a 50% chance anything I say is wrong. So everybody that's been around here gets that, but if you're new, just need to have that disclaimer here. But Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen, Alan Greenspan, their odds of being correct aren't any higher. In fact, they'd probably be saying, Mark, stop saying 50%. That's kind of bragging. We can't even get to 50 anymore. And the other issue is we're not going to have a crash this year. Now, I can't see. I have a feeling there's a few people that are under 40 in this room. And the housing market's got a little bit of a weakness right now. I see this. I'll see an article in the Journal, housing market in Vegas slowing down. And then they'll interview a millennial. And they'll say, well, and I'm a big fan of millennials. I totally get it. But they'll say, oh, yeah, we're a little nervous right now because we remember what happened 10 years ago when houses fell 10 or 20%. Oh, and by the way, we missed out on the mortgage market. I mean, the 30-year mortgage is now skyrocketed up to 4 3/4. Okay? That's what happens when you're young. I get it, all right? I made a lot of mistakes when I was young, too. The problem is if you're under 40, you got a problem on your hands just like my generation has a problem on our hands, and my dad's generation had a problem on his hands. My dad's gone now, but he grew up in the Depression, and he spent his whole life, along with all of his colleagues, waiting for another depression to happen that never did, and he was stained in his investment decisions his entire life waiting for that to happen. My generation, by the way, if you can't figure it out, I'm 64 years old, in case you thought I was 83 or something like that, all right? My generation is stained in a totally different way. Come on, everybody, boys and girls, fess up. How many of you still use an HP 12C? Come on, let's see them. It's a badge of honor, okay? I found that there's almost 100% correlation between people that use an HP 12C and people that are worried about runaway inflation. It's just like if you push the wrong button there, it says, inflation will run away in 48 hours. Buy gold and silver this afternoon. All right? My generation has been waiting for runaway inflation, and they're sitting here today waiting for runaway inflation. And for the last 15 years, I've been saying, you can't have it. Okay? You can't have it. These are the same people that are going, wow, when are we going to have the next RTC, Mark? I'm waiting around for that RTC. When's that thing going to happen? Well, that could never happen either. There isn't going to be another RTC, and there isn't going to be any runaway inflation. And I know you watch Fox News, a bunch of you do. It's just as horrible for propaganda and misinformation as CNBC, MSNBC, whatever else you want to watch. Even the Weather Channel. My gosh, now they even give me advisories for warm, hot summer advisories. I'm living in South Texas. I get this well, I don't get this beep because I don't get them, but my wife gets a beep on her phone, and it's like a notification, hot weather advisory, and I'm going, I don't think I need my phone to tell me it's hot in Texas in August, okay? Runaway inflation ain't going to happen. They were talking a minute ago, the speaker did, correctly said that people were anticipating higher interest rates last year and higher cap rates to go with it. And you've heard that since 2013. And I've been coming out and saying, that's not going to happen. You better hand me that glass of water, please. Pardon me. I have a real problem with this stuff because I love what I do, and I can get carried away. I don't have allergies, don't worry about it. I didn't lose my voice like I did that one year. Okay, mortgage rates I don't think mortgage rates are going any higher than they are right now. I think we may have seen the peak in mortgage rates already. And so with that said, that's my generation's problem. If you're under 40, here's your generation's problem. You saw a recession in 2007 and 8, and you saw house prices in Las Vegas and Phoenix, maybe a few other places, drop by 10% or so, and you think that's going to happen the next time we have another recession. That wasn't a recession. That was a financial apocalypse. Financial apocalypses happen once in our lifetime. What's normal in a housing market is house prices may go up for quite a while, then they get kind of expensive, and everybody goes, wow, seem like they're pretty highly priced. And then you have a recession, and what happens is house prices just stop going up, and they go flat for a period of years until the next recovery, and then it starts off again. That's a normal housing market. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I don't get paid to sell houses. I don't care if you ever buy a house. It means nothing to me. But what I do care about is if you're 30 years old, you're married, and you just had a baby, and you've had a lifelong dream, you and your spouse, of owning a house, and you're not going to buy a house because mortgage rates have escalated to 4 3/4, and you're waiting for property values to drop 20% so you can buy in at a rock bottom price, you're probably never going to own a house in your entire lifetime, just like my buddies are waiting around for the RTC to come back again. The housing market is soft in a certain kind of way because people are worried about another financial apocalypse, and it's just not going to happen. People say, well, are we just repeating? We haven't learned our lessons. We're doing the same thing again here because prices are up and so forth. Here's what happened in 2006 and 7. People could get a house with a 107% loan-to-value ratio with no job and horrible credit. And so you could buy a $200,000 house, get $14,000 in cash out of it, on top of buying the house, and you could do that 10 or 20 times, and nobody cared if you had good credit or not. Are we doing that this time around? That would probably be, the answer is no, we're not. For a long time, you didn't have a 20% down payment, you didn't buy a house. We're starting to get back to normal again, but the fact of the matter is nobody in this country is buying a house that has poor credit and no job because we're verifying all that stuff again. This is nothing like the previous iteration of a slowdown in the economy. Here's the dope. Every month, I saw this morning on CNBC. Boy, a third of all economists think we're going to have a recession between now and middle of next summer. Every month, somewhere between 90,000 and 300,000 people are getting a job. January number, 304,000 people. Do you hear that trumpeted in the news at all? No. Why? Because it's positive news, and our media hates positive news, period. And so, in addition to that, wages are going up. This is the rate of wage growth in this country. People are not only getting jobs, wages are going up about 3% a year. And you look at this and you go, hey, see what I'm saying, Mark? Runaway inflation's right around the corner. Wages are going up. Won't be long before interest rates are up to 12, 13%, and I need to buy gold. I'm just waiting to buy gold again. 3% wage increases is not inflationary. This chart goes back to about 1960, and there's where inflation shows its head. There was inflation in this country from about 1975 to 1981. We had inflation in this country, and wages were going up. How much? 9% a year. How much are they going up right now? 3% a year. What do the knuckleheads on TV say? Oh, wage inflation's really picking up now. Look at that chart. Does that look threatening to you over the last 60 years? It's awesome that wages are going up 3% a year. It's awesome that cops, firefighters, and teachers are getting pay raises finally again. It's awesome that the bottom half of the economic income structure is getting massive pay raises again. It's about time. This is not inflationary. This is not what causes. Here's why I don't like Fox, because there's many reasons why I don't like CNBC or MSNBC. But there's a lot of reasons I don't like Fox either. A nice young man, about a 70-year-old in a $2,000 suit, comes up to me after presentation. There's a bunch of other people there. Probably want to know if they should buy Bitcoin or not. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But this guy, nice fella, comes up and goes, Mark, I'm thinking about buying silver because I've heard it's going to $100. And I thought, well, my thought was, oh my gosh, what happened to you? Where did you go? But I didn't. I just said, well, that wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be interested in buying silver because it's going to $100. It's $15 an ounce, if you want to know today. And so about 2 weeks later, I tune into Fox News. I like to watch it 7 minutes a year just to be sure I'm not missing anything, okay? And so in that 7 minutes, Sean Hannity is on. I remember that. He's their big superstar, and somebody that's advertising on their big superstar has to be a very reliable vendor, right? And it's Blanchard, the gold dealer. And sure enough, there it is. Silver's going to go to $100 in the near term because of mischief with the Federal Reserve. How would you, that's just one example of 100 that if you watch any of this network, cable news, any of it, you could be wandering around giving your clients expert advice about buying silver at $15 before it goes to $100. I mean, back in the day when my friends were saying, I got to buy gold, I was telling everybody at the time, if you're even thinking about buying gold, just go ahead and take cocaine because at least you'll feel good before it kills you. And that's how it is with $15 silver. I mean, I don't know where they get that stuff. These network and cable news places are nothing but advertising, sales, propaganda machines. Just like your Facebook is nothing but an advertising propaganda machine. Your Facebook knows what you like and what you don't like, and they'll send you advertising, and they'll fix your news up so that you'll be angry all the time. And if you watch Fox News, they will give you all kinds of news so you're angry and bitter, and stay tuned tomorrow so you can continue your anger and bitterness. And that's how it sells. So just watch it for entertainment, but don't even pretend that you can advise anybody, your children, your wife, your husband, anybody else. Don't even pretend you can advise anybody about making business decisions based on the propaganda that's in the media, period. Wall Street Journal, Reuters, AP, those are the only sources I know where you can get legitimate information that is not propagandized. And I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm no longer even a registered cynic. I'm absolutely disgusted with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and I feel both of them are a blight on our economic future and should be disbanded. That's what I'm thinking. So when I make a few comments about Donald Trump, I may say something positive about Donald Trump, and I know that's illegal in 39 states, but I said it in San Jose and they clapped and they're going to invite me back out there. So if you're a Democrat, just deal with it. This isn't a pep rally for politics. This is a business meeting to try to analyze federal policy and how it impacts business decisions. That's all I'm here for. Right now, you wouldn't hear this either, because the basketball programs back east there, like Harvard and Princeton and Yale and all the rest of those, they're telling you we're going to have a recession this year, but they just kind of skip this one, that there's 7.3 million jobs open today. It's never been that high, ever. This comes out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's called the JOLTS report. 7.3 million jobs in every discipline. When I was out on the road and the federal government was closed down, I was saying, you know what? I feel sorry for these people that aren't working right now and they got to make their paycheck. The only mistake they made was choosing who to work for. I mean, there was 7 million other jobs available. You don't need to work for the federal government. Consumer confidence is near a record high. You won't hear that either. What's the headline? I watch the headlines. I read the Journal, and all I do is look at the headlines for most of it until I find something that really matters. And I read the headlines, and I hear the news on TV, some. Can't help it. You can't go to a restaurant without having some TV on. My wife and I was like, oh my gosh, no matter where you go, you can't get away from television. What's the headline with consumer confidence? Look at that chart. Does that look like a recession coming? It looks like near record high to me. What's the headline for the last 3 months? Consumer confidence index declined in December. Consumer confidence declined again in January. Consumer confidence declined a little bit in February. We're probably getting ready to have a recession. You see, they don't tell you it declined a minuscule amount from an absolute record high, and people are on fire with that. And hundreds of thousands of people are getting jobs every month, and the whole country's getting 3% pay raises. No wonder people are confident about things. The only people that aren't, I find, are rich people. For the most part. The housing market, doesn't matter where you are in this country, here's the story. If you live in any town that's got job growth at all, here's the story. Houses in the bottom third of the market, price range, let's make it up, say in my town, under $200,000. If you got a house for sale under $200,000, it'll sell in a minute. There'll be 5 offers, it'll sell over the asking price. Go up to $500,000, it gets a little softer, but boy, you get over $1 million and it's been dead for like 2 years. And I've been asking all over this country for the last 2 years. I had Lawrence Yun on a program with me. He's the chief economist of NAR. Everybody, nobody can answer this question for me. What happened to the rich people in this country? Why did they stop buying houses? And nobody can answer that for me. But anyhow, the bottom line is the headlines show consumer confidence declining, supporting the basketball program, saying we're going to have a recession coming up pretty soon, when the fact is that so many people are getting jobs and pay raises, consumer confidence is nearly off the chart. Now, things are going to slow down a little bit, and I'll explain why. Here's kind of the list. Because I don't do Zig Ziglar power positive thinking, let's put some lipstick on a pig and sell something speech. And I don't have any self-esteem. I don't care if you do either, all right? I'm not here for a pep rally. I'm here to give you some information so maybe you make the best possible decisions you can for your clients and your family. Things are slowing down. The housing industry appears to have peaked. No economist can figure this out. Why housing market has peaked. Traditionally, if you have job growth, cheap mortgage money, and home price appreciation, that means you're going to have more transaction volume, and we don't. And like I said, the high end of the market's gotten super soft. Whatever the reason is, housing market's a big deal, a big part of the industry of the country, and it's gone flat. Appears to have peaked. The car business peaked last year. Peaked means it's high, but it's not going up anymore. It doesn't mean it's collapsing. It just means it's stopping going up. This is the best news of all time. Smartphone sales declined for the first time in 2017. This is the best news. Like, I don't even have mine with me, but it's like everybody going around going, oh, here, look at this dog video. I know that you don't think I have any value as a human being, but maybe you'll pay attention to me if I show you this dog video. It's just sad to watch. It's too bad. It's okay to really call somebody on the phone and talk to him or just have a little conversation with him, you know? And frankly, you are interesting whether you're showing cat videos or not. Just feel good about that. Rejoice. Oil and gas isn't going to go anywhere, I don't think. Keep in mind, 50% chance anything I say is wrong. But here's the thing about oil and gas. And I was just out in Midland about 3 weeks ago. You can still smell oil out in Midland, Texas, right out in the middle of the Permian Basin. I was in Houston about 4 days ago, and when you walk into those places and say oil prices aren't going to go up for any time soon, they don't particularly care for that, and they're kind of wondering about what are you talking about there, young man? But here's the deal. I think Donald Trump wants to get reelected again, and Donald Trump has made a huge bunch of mistakes. I got quoted here as either last year or the year before because my mom sent it to me. Economist praises Trump policies and calls him an idiot. I don't remember which media that was. And I said, I did. I called him an idiot. He's an idiot in a lot of ways. But you can be an idiot in a lot of ways and be a genius in a few things. And the things that he's good at is creating jobs. And he's doing it. But he made a mistake of not only taking credit for all the jobs that are being created, which it's a big part of he is a big reason why we've created this many jobs. Whether you like it or not, Republican or Democrat means nothing to me. Fact is, that's happened. But he made a mistake by not only taking credit for all the jobs they're creating, but he's also kind of hung his hat on the stock market. And that's a huge mistake. So he's kind of got equity involved here that the stock market's up too. What happened to him? He got out over his skis a little bit, decided to go geopolitical last year, and he put Iran in the doghouse. Said, Iran, nobody's gonna buy oil from you. I'm gonna see to it that nobody buys oil from you, and you will run out of money, and I'm gonna bankrupt the Ayatollah. This is what the game plan is. If you haven't read that, read it. It's out there. I'm not making any of this up. There's nothing I'm gonna say to you that I haven't said to a bunch of people that are in the business. And when I talk about oil and I talk about Saudi Arabia, I had a table full of Arab sheiks in Houston saying exactly the same things I'm going to say here today, and they completely agreed. You might get nervous because you haven't been around an oil sheik for quite a while, okay? But I'm just telling you, don't get nervous, because I happen to tell the truth quite a bit, and I'm really not worried. I'm kind of bulletproof at age 64. I'm not really sitting around hoping everybody likes me. Here's what happened. Trump put Iran in the doghouse. Nothing wrong with that. But when he did that, oil went up to $80. Now, that's fun if you're in the oil and gas business, but that also caused gasoline to go up. And when gasoline goes up, inflation starts to go up. And then what happens? Right behind here, there's a guy back there. And that guy is the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and his name's Jerome Powell. And when oil went up to $80, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, he's sleeping most of the time. He's just dormant, all right? He's dormant. As long as the economy's doing well and there's no inflation, he's dormant. And then oil goes to $80, and somebody goes, Jerome, wake up. Oil went up to 80. I got to go out and make a pronouncement. Okay. He comes out and makes a huge mistake. Rookies make mistakes. I make mistakes, and I'm not even a rookie. Don't get me wrong. I don't think I know everything, and I don't think I don't make mistakes. I totally get it. He made a huge mistake in October, and the Dow dropped 20%. And because he was worried about inflation coming back. And all my buddies are going, see, Mark, I'm wringing my hands, and I've been watching Fox, and I bought silver for $15, and now the market's down 20%. You see, I told you we're going to have a recession like right away. So what happens? What does Trump do? He wants to get reelected. He's hung his hat on a strong economy and a strong stock market. And Jerome Powell is starting to talk about raising interest rates, and the Dow drops 20%. So what does Trump do? That Jerome Powell's the worst appointment I've ever made. That guy is just making me sick to my stomach. It's the worst appointment I ever made. And I'm going to ask my staff to figure out if I can fire that guy or not. Okay? That's what you heard in October, November, didn't you? And of course, I was out saying, he isn't going to fire the chairman of the Federal Reserve. That just ain't going to happen. Just relax on that one. But he's sitting there browbeating Powell, and what he didn't know, somebody should have advised him, is every time he criticizes the Federal Reserve, they just dig in their heels and go, whatever that president's saying, whether it's Truman or whether it's Nixon or whether it's Reagan or Clinton, whatever those presidents are saying, if they say we got to do something, we're not going to do it. Period. So the more Trump talked about firing him, the more they just got to digging in. So the market's down 20%, oil's $80. He can't fire Powell. So what does Trump do? Let's see, I put Iran in the doghouse, oil went to $80. I wonder if I take Iran out of the doghouse, if it'll go back to 50. Well, he didn't want to take him out of the doghouse, so what does he do? He allows the 6 or 8 largest countries on earth to have an exemption from the sanctions. That would be places like China, India, Japan, the biggest countries on earth. Right now, sanctions are on Iran, but the 8 largest countries on earth are exempt from the sanctions. And the minute he did that, what happened to the price of oil? $80, $70, $60. What happens when oil goes back down to $55 a barrel? Yep, back to sleep. What does the stock market do the minute he goes back to sleep? The Dow's within a striking distance of being a record high again. So Trump figured this out. Bottom line is he's going to try to keep the price of oil at $55 between now and another 18 months, whenever the election is. So if you're a Democrat and you just want Donald Trump to be gone, forget about posters and all the rest of that stuff. root for $80 oil. That's the one that'll do it. And we're playing hardball with China. I've mentioned for years that China is a subcontractor for the United States, and everybody was all nervous about China, and if we don't treat them just with kid gloves, they'll sell all their treasury bonds. Interest rates will go up. It'll ruin the housing market and commercial real estate and all that. That's not going to happen either. They only own $1 trillion worth of our bonds. I love the Chinese people. Luann and I have Chinese students in our house frequently. In fact, about 4 months ago, Johnny, that's his English name, taught Luann and I how to play Chinese mahjong, including trying to say Chinese numbers and the characters that are on the mahjong. And he was having fun listening to us trying to say them. And at the end, he said, that was really fun. This was almost like real Chinese mahjong. The only difference between this and doing it for real in China is you have to smoke unfiltered cigarettes while you're playing it. And of course, we don't do that, and so we did the best we could. And so I love Chinese people, but I can't stand the Chinese government because it's an authoritarian communist dictatorship that steals intellectual property and does not honor civil rights of anybody except their own Chinese people. You want to talk about racism at its absolute max? If you're a Muslim and you go to a mosque in China, there's cameras on every corner taking your picture, and one of our famous social network people that all these young people are all excited about because they're disrupting the world. They're selling facial recognition to China so that when they take those pictures of those people going to that mosque, and oh, by the way, exactly the same thing for Christians going to their church, they take those facial recognition pictures and match it up so they know exactly who you are, and then they start monitoring your social media tweets and whatever other stuff you do on things I don't even know how to do it. They monitor that, and then guess what they're going to do starting right now is they're going to give you a grade card. Everybody in China is going to get a grade card based on whether you go to one of those churches or one of those mosques, and whatever you say about that authoritarian communist dictator, and when your grade card doesn't match up very high with a B or a C or a D or an F, you're not going to get health care, your kids aren't going to go to college, and you may go to a concentration camp for a long time. That's who we're dealing with here. So I'm thrilled to death. I hope we put 1,000% tariff. If I had any choice at all, what happens is we stop buying from China, it'll come from somewhere else. I mean, there's one thing about American people we don't tolerate is lack of supply. So you call Walmart and go, you kidding me? No TV? I got 6 in my house already, but Fifi doesn't have one in her doghouse, and I demand to have one for $90, and you better have it next week, okay? You don't make it in China anymore. You make it in Singapore or Taiwan or Indonesia or somewhere else. That's as simple as how it works. I hope we don't buy a thing from China until they change their ways. And what else? Congress won't be interested in growth this year, all right? So over here on the left, I got the Republicans, and over here on the right, I got the Democrats. Got them mixed up, and that's good. All right? So the president reigns in this tribe right now. And this tribe just got elected to be in the House of Representatives. And so what is this tribe doing? I wanted to know. It's like, whoa, we got a little change in Washington. I need to watch Fox News and MSNBC for the propaganda because I need to know what the new boss, the new straw boss in the House of Representatives wants to do. So I listened to that for about a week, and I hear the same thing about 5 times, and then I stop watching anymore. The Democrats, what are you wanting to do? Hearings and investigations. That's it, nothing else. So I get it. Your job is to get Donald Trump out of office. That's how tribalism works. I don't like your tribe, and I don't like your tribe either. But so the bottom line is, you're not going to help Donald Trump do anything good between now and the election. If that guy does anything good, it lessens your opportunity for him to get to be unelected again. So, bottom line, this is how it works. When Obama was president, the Republicans did nothing to help him. Anything he might do that was good, they didn't support him ever. And so it's exactly the same thing this time. You over here aren't going to support anything good because that might make him look good, and you don't want him to look good. So, bottom line is nothing coming out of government for the next 18 months, which is great by me. I wish they'd just shut the whole thing down and give all the money back to the governors and the mayors who actually know how to do something. So if you're heavy in defense industry, which this town's got some, but not as much as some places I'm at, or other kinds of federal government spending, it's not going to grow. And besides that, my Republican tribe, who talks about fiscal conservatism, are running about $1 trillion budget deficit. They're real good at that. Republicans are excellent about creating $1 trillion deficits. And I guarantee you, everybody in this room that's over 50 years old, you've asked me this question or somebody else, I'm worried about this federal debt, Mark. How come you don't talk about the $23 trillion in debt? Doesn't that make you nervous? Everybody in this room is nervous about that, and yet whenever a Republican gets in office, man, boom, we got $1 trillion in debt. So that's why I'm not real partial to either one of these tribes. And then finally, let's see, defense spending has peaked. Federal budget deficits can't get much higher. I don't expect to see some big kumbaya deal where the Republicans and Democrats, we can all agree on infrastructure. Oh yeah, of course we can. And if we could run from a $1 trillion deficit, if we could make it $2 trillion a year, then we'll have a bunch of infrastructure spending on roads and bridges. But I can promise you there isn't hardly any American in this country that would say, yes, I would like to see our government debt go up $2 trillion a year. Not going to happen. Okay, so I'm going to hit it head on. When are we going to have a recession? And here's the deal. The longest expansion we've had since World War II is 10 years. And right now, we're at 116 months. So 4 months from now, we'll have the longest economic expansion in the last 75 years. That's why people come on TV and say, well, we think a recession's just around the corner because reversion to the mean. Do you know what reversion to the mean means? Mean just is average. So when somebody from Harvard or some really cool place like that says, we know there's a reversion to the mean, and this is getting way long out there, what that person is saying when they rely on reversion to the mean, they're saying, I don't know why it went up. I don't know why it goes down, but I'm really good at calculating averages. Okay. I want to talk about why it might go up or down. I'm not interested in helping you make horrible business decisions. So I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to get some facts, and here's the facts. We had a tax cut last year that changed the whole thing. It's not average. We're not going to revert to a mean. It's not average because we had a tax cut last year, and in my lifetime, we've only had 3 of them. And the first one was in 1964. It's called the Kennedy tax cuts. Kennedy had a slogan, getting America moving again. What's Trump's Make America Great Again? Everybody makes fun of him because he's got a slogan. I'll bet you anything the media didn't make fun of JFK with his slogan of getting America moving again. So what happens? We had a recession in 1960. The tax cut was enacted in 64. Economic activity peaked in 66, and we didn't have another recession until 1970. So I draw my inference from this is when you have a tax cut, you don't have a recession for 6 years after the tax cut. When did we have ours? Last year. Another one, Tax Reform Act, 1986. This is when the RTC happened, okay? Called the Reagan tax cuts. What happened? We had a recession in 81. We had tax cuts enacted in 1986. Economic activity peaked 2 years later, and we didn't have a recession until 1990. So I'm looking at about 4.5 years between this one and a recession. So you might go, if you're from Brown or some other school like that, you might say, Mark, you comfortable with a sample size of 2? And I go, no, I'm not. What do you got? Nothing. We can calculate means. We're really good at calculating averages. I understand it. It's not 1964. It's not 1986. All I'm telling you is there's only 2 times going back that long that we've had a major tax cut, and it's 4 to 6 years before you have a recession after that. I'm not saying, I don't think it's going to last 4 to 6 years, but I'm pretty darn certain it ain't going to happen this year, and doubt if it's going to happen next year. And I guess I should mention this right now, because what would cause a recession, I can tell you this, is socialism. Now, I told all those people out in San Jose, be a Democrat, be a Republican, means nothing to me. That's your tribe, that's your tribe. But there's a big difference between being a Democrat and being a socialist. Socialism is an abomination. We are the only country on earth that even is considering socialism. It just befuddles me. I can't even believe it. And I think most people have no idea what socialism means. Bernie Sanders is not a socialist. He says he is, but I haven't heard him say anything that sounds like a socialist. What I hear him saying is, you kids out there, you vote for me, I'll give you a free college education and I'll pay off your student loans. That's not socialism. That's standard hack politics in America. Promise people something and buy their vote. That's how it works in America. I could take Bernie Sanders out in an Iowa caucus like in 5 minutes. He'd get up there and get all the young kids all goosed up about this with the free education and pay off your loans. And then I'd get up there and go, Bernie, that's a good effort. But I'm looking out here, I'm seeing quite a few people that are not 30 years old. They look like they're 40 or 50, and some of them look like they're 70 or 80. And I didn't see them just clapping super wild about free education and paying off your student loans. All the rest of you in the room, including you kids that were clapping a minute ago, you vote for me, free health care for your pets for life. And I get them all. I get the kids, I get the middle-aged, I get the dog lovers, the cat lovers, I get the old people with all their pets and stuff. And that's not socialism either. That's hack politics. Promise somebody you'll give them something you can't pay for and beg to get reelected. Socialism, just in case you were wondering, you might look this up because this is a big deal this year, and it's not good to be politically correct about socialism. Socialism is where the government owns the businesses and owns the means of production and owns the means of distribution. Do you know what that means? Suppose I'm Vladimir Putin and I'm the head of America now, and you just put me in office as the head of the state, and that means I own every business. And that means I tell every business what they're going to make. And every business is going to be owned partially, but it's by you. You own it all, but my cousins are going to be running the plant, and they're going to be making a lot of money. And not only that, but when you go to the grocery store, you go to the Target, whatever it is, I tell what goods and services are going to be in there. And if my cousin makes tractor tires, Target is going to be full of tractor tires. And if you want to go in there and get a fragrance, ladies, you're going to have a selection of essence of tractor tire. Okay? That's socialism. So if you don't know that, look it up because it's unbelievable this year. I'm astounded. We are the only country on earth that is talking positive. If I had 5 people up here right now from Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, any of the former Soviet Union states, and they're all 30 years old, I would say, look, tell these people what you think. And if you're looking at me thinking, I think socialism's okay because these businessmen and women steal stuff, I totally get it. Totally get it. But socialism is not the answer. Raising taxes is not the answer. The marginal tax rate was 91% for a lot of our history in the last 100 years. The marginal tax rate was 86% for a while. It was 50% for quite a while. That is not socialism. Socialism will be the ruin of this country. There's nothing politically correct about this when somebody says they think socialism is a good idea, unless your whole goal is just to ruin everything in America. Okay? Raise taxes, do what you want, but don't let the government. How would this be to have the government own the military and own all the businesses and run all the shots? Then you're just like China. If you don't act right, you're not buying nothing. If you don't act right, you're not getting a job. If this whole little area here gives me a little problem, all the business is going to move over here where somebody likes me a lot. That's socialism, troops. Help educate people. It's the #1 issue in my mind in the next 18 months. Here's the early warning detection. Trust me, I'm looking for things to slow down because people are wondering about it. And here's the early warning things, and I'm not seeing anything. There's nothing on the radar. Corporate profits are still at a record high. And the bottom line is, in capitalism anyhow, when corporations are making money, they hire people. That's good. It's really cool to hire people. It's fun to have a whole bunch of people with jobs. When corporate profits start to fall, people will start laying off people. Not happening yet. Corporate bond spreads. It's too late for that, and there's been alcohol served, so I'm just going to skip that one. Not even going to try it, okay? Small business confidence, the amount of small business owners in America saying, I'm going to hire people in the next 3 months, near a record high. Major corporations, 56% say they're going to hire people. 14% say they're going to fire people. Those 14% are largely in Bitcoin and blockchain. I know if there's some of you in this room that probably investing in Bitcoin or trading in Bitcoin. I totally get it. It's like gambling. I'm pretty sure most of the people that are investing in Bitcoin are people that were playing video poker in their mom's basement for the last 4 years and got tired of that gambling and decided to invest in Bitcoin. Ask somebody that invests in Bitcoin, why does it go up? Don't know. Why does it go down? Don't know. Why are you investing in it? Not sure. Buying houses, buying real estate, that's investing. Buying bonds, that's investing. Buying stock, that's speculation. Buying Bitcoin is pure gambling. That's all there is to it. If you like gambling, go for it, but just be sure you know what it is. The index of leading indicators is showing absolutely no hint of an oncoming recession at all. So with that said, I'm baffled with all these people coming on TV and telling you every day, recession's coming. We will have a recession at some point. It works that way. But with what's going on right now, it's just not there. I want to talk about interest rates for a minute. Why do you care? Because some of you in this room are interested in the housing market, and some of you in this room are interested in the commercial real estate market. It has both impacts. If you're a housing kind of person, here's the deal. Mortgage rates are highly correlated with the 10-year U.S. Treasury. And the 10-year U.S. Treasury rate is not controlled by rookie over here, Jay Powell. He can raise a one-day rate. He can't touch a 10-year bond rate. So when people say the Fed's raising rates and it's going to raise mortgage rates, that's somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. Because mortgage rates, 10-year bond rates don't go up when the Fed makes them go up or down. They go up only when people think there's going to be inflation. So the conclusion is mortgage rates increase only when inflation expectations increase. Inflation expectations are low. The mortgage rate should be around 4 3/4, somewhere in there. And unless inflation starts to go up, it's not going to go up anywhere. I don't care if the Fed raises rates every 2 months, which they're not going to do after what happened to the stock market. For those of you in the commercial real estate market, you're thinking, oh, cap rates might go up. That's just a buzzword for yields on real estate. Cap rates are moderately correlated with the 10-year Treasury. Not 100% though, and the 10-year Treasury is not controlled by the Fed, and it only goes up by expected rate of inflation. So here's the conclusion there. Cap rates might go up when inflation expectations increase. And inflation expectations are not increasing, and that's why the 10-year Treasury is super low right now, and that's why mortgage rates are super low, and that's why cap rates haven't increased at all, and there's nothing on the horizon to say anything's going to change. So when people say, oh, the mortgage rates might be up 1/2 by the end of the year, that's just somebody guessing without a clue of why mortgage rates would go up. Here's what inflation looks like. This is where my buddies with the HP 12C waiting for runaway inflation. They saw this happen. We had inflation in 74 and 79. And who caused it? Be these guys. That guy on the left's Muammar Gaddafi. One day he got feisty. The price of oil was $1 a barrel, and the next day it was $4 a barrel. That's called quadrupling the price of oil in one day. What happens to the price of gasoline and the cost of shipping and everything? That's inflationary. And 5 years later, that other guy with that really cool beard, I'm still working on it. I'm not there yet, okay? That's an Ayatollah. That's the Ayatollah of Iran. When that guy came to power, Iran's oil production just died. The Ayatollahs have a lot of training in certain things, but this is a little secret they don't let out. Ayatollahs have no training in petroleum engineering or resource management pools and that stuff. So their production just started to drop. So the price of oil went to $40. So between Muammar Gaddafi in 74 and by the time that other guy, Ayatollah, is in control, in 6 years oil went from $1 to $40 and stuck there for quite a while. That's what created the runaway inflation. And so that's why oil matters. That's why Jerome Powell woke up for a while and then went back to sleep. And I guarantee you, Donald Trump's not going to say a word about firing Jerome Powell anymore. Inflation is running about 2% for this whole century so far. No sign of runaway inflation. So let me close with this, because an old economist in Washington mentioned to me years ago that every economist should use the words "in conclusion" to give their audience hope. So I'm almost there. So when the Fed's raising rates, what is this guy doing behind the curtain here? Why is he raising the Fed funds rate? It was zero forever. Why did they do that? Because we didn't have any fiscal policy for 10 years. We didn't have a president, we didn't have a Congress that cared about job growth, period. They were worried about other things, not job growth. So because they had no fiscal policy coming out of Washington, the Fed put interest rates to zero, so we'd buy cars and houses and stuff with cheap money. So Jerome Powell I said this last year, and maybe the last year before that, the Fed's trying to raise rates from zero, not to punish the economy, just to get it off of zero. Why? So that when we have another recession, they can turn around and lower it back down to zero and make it look like they know what they're doing. And that is a true statement. They would like to have that interest rate about 3 or 3.5%, and they didn't make it. They're up to 2.25, 2.5, and they'd like to get higher, but the stock market collapsed on them. So the whole debate is about the neutral rate, and this is where Jerome Powell got in real trouble in October. What is the neutral rate? It's a rate that's not too low, but not too high. They don't want to overheat the economy, but they also don't want to cause a recession. And here's a rookie mistake you make, and I document this stuff with spreadsheets. So October 3rd, this is the one that dropped off a cliff. We may go past the neutral rate, but we're a long way from getting to that neutral rate, probably. The market dropped 20% after that because they interpreted that meaning that guy's going to raise rates 3 or 4 times between now and the end of the year, and maybe another 3 or 4 times next year, and the stock market couldn't take it, dropped 20%. Okay, in the middle of that drop, Jerome Powell comes back and says, they hadn't changed the rate at all, just changed this verbiage. Said the Fed's benchmark interest rate was just below that neutral level. By golly, we've changed our mind. We're not way below anymore. We're just below. Market continues to sink. Then at December 19th, we're right now at the lower end of that rate. We're there. And that's when the market started coming back up, and it's been rising ever since. That's what rookies do. Here's what the non-rookies do, the old-timers on the ball team. There's Alan Greenspan. He was Fed chairman back in 2005, and he was trying to raise rates, and some reporter asked him, must have said, Alan, how high are you going to raise that old neutral rate? And Alan's comment was to Financial Advisor News in 2005, it's very difficult to know where that so-called neutral rate is, but we probably will know it when we are there because we will observe a certain degree of balance which we had not perceived before, which would suggest that we are somewhere very close to where that is. There's only 2 kinds of people that talk like that. Chairman of the Federal Reserve and university presidents. I mean, this is the kind of training you have to get. Greenspan was quoted back about this time in a Humphrey Hawkins testimony to Congress. His comment was, Congressman, if you think you understood what I just said, I must have misspoken. That was a true statement too, okay? So anyhow, with that said, the outlook to me, 50-50 chance I'm wrong, and some of you guys right out here said, you haven't really been wrong much since I've been coming here, and that's a true statement, so that makes me worried that I could have a big one this year, okay? But barring that, it looks like to me we're in for another good year of strong growth. And we're in for another year where interest rates on mortgages and cap rates on commercial real estate aren't going to go anywhere either. And so with that said, I think it's going to be a great year to be alive, and it's a great year to be in business. So thank you for inviting me, Nestor, and best wishes to all of you. I hope you have a wonderful year.